Hi, everyone. So today I am joined with a former guest. Her name is Bora Chung. She's a Korean author based in Korea, and she was on my Substack over a year ago, I want to say. That was when she released her last book, Your Utopia. And Bora has released both Curse Bunny and Your Utopia, and these books have received critical acclaim. And Bora is about to be on the verge of releasing her upcoming novel, Midnight Timetable, a novel and ghost story. This is your third time collaborating with our good friend, author translator Anton Hirsch. So, first of all, thank you for being on my show. And how have you been navigating 2025 so far?
Um, Hi, thanks for having me. I've been I don't think I don't feel like I've been navigating. I'm just like I'm swamped. If I'm navigating, I'm doing it very haphazardly.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's kind of wild that we are 3 months away from 2026. It feels like one day it feels like 2025 feels like it's been an eternity. And then other days it actually feels like it's a blip of a radar. So yeah, I can only imagine how so many things have happened and before you know it, we're already halfway through this decade. So in your previous books, you have taken on issues such as AI, late stage capitalism, futurism through dark humor. There's always this very ominous tone that you're sending through your writing. What was your approach when you began writing Midnight Timetable?
The publisher said I could write whatever I wanted to write. They didn't give me a topic or any kind of direction. So, I just wrote a lot of ghost stories and I really, really enjoyed it. I I got a lot of inspiration from the Legend of Three Kingdoms and the History of Three Kingdoms and the Legend of Three Kingdoms. It's from uh the both books are from historical records from 5th century, 6th century, all the way up to like 9th century. So like early Middle Ages in Korea. And they like all the historical records from early Middle Ages, I think it's pretty much same all around the world. Like people recorded actual historical or real events along with fantastical um happenings or things that sound totally made up with all the like wars, famine, or good crop, bad weather, all kinds of realistic things. They will all recorded together in these historical records. So it's immensely fascinating. I love them. And I got a lot of inspiration from them, and I kind of incorporated a part of it too in Midnight Timetable. It was fun. It was so
Yeah.
much fun.
I'm also like wondering about ghost stories because I've always been fascinated by the paranormal and also the historical context of ghost stories. But I'm very curious from the Korean perspective of how they view ghosts in general, but also how the stories of ghosts actually, in a way, inform the writing that you do.
Um, So Korean ghosts, as far as I know, uh, uh, fall into roughly two categories. Things that supernatural beings that were never humans. So like the spirit of the mountain, the fairy of the lake, the dragon, people certain parts of people from certain parts of Korea really, really love dragon, and there are a lot of records and a lot of stories about dragons. So those beings were never human, and in the Korean concept of ghosts, they are all lumped together with ghosts, meaning spirit from dead people. People who were once alive, but now their bodies are dead, and their spirits are roaming around the world and haunting people in places. They're all lumped together in this one word ghosts. And I like that kind of idea. And also, Koreans were obsessed with being married. So in the Korean thinking, if you're not married and die, I mean, if you die a virgin, especially, then you're gonna be a ghost. You're gonna haunt. You're never gonna go to the netherworld because you've never like consummated your life purpose, I guess. So, and it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you're a a guy who's never been married and died, then you become a certain kind of ghost. And if you're a woman, then you become another kind of ghost. And there are like so many stories about these ghosts. Um, it's just so funny that Koreans were so obsessed with getting married. Um, and that's a euphemism for, something else. But I mean, yeah. So like, and they were so obsessed with heterosexual relationship. So in Midnight Timetable, I turned to a slightly different direction. So there's this guy who is gay, and his family put him through conversion therapy. And conversion therapy is not a very actively discussed in Korea, but I know it's happening in Korea. And because it is not actively discussed, it's like, I guess it's happening in certain part of a very fundamentalist, extremist religious groups, um, and un unbeknownst to the rest of the society. So I wanted to talk about that, and also I wanted the minority, all kinds of minorities, to be all happy, and I wanted to kill all the bad guys. So yeah, that was a lot of fun killing bad guys.
I also want to say that I'm 42 years old and I'm still not married, and I don't really care to get married. So I don't know what kind of ghost I will be, especially as a gay ghost. I think I would be a very good kind of a ghost, I guess. I would love to haunt um fascist people. I mean, that would be my dream. So I don't know. What about for you? Like, what kind of ghost would you be?
Well, the goal is to not haunt this world. Just go wherever you have to go and get away from all these living people. Um, but if I become a ghost, I want to be a cat ghost. I want to be a ghost who lives among the cats,
Oh,
street cats.
that would be amazing. I would love to be a domestic cat being reincarnated. I think that would be an ideal goal of mine because I feel like I do live the life of a cat. And yeah, I've always been very fascinated by the paranormal and also by the folklore surrounding it too, especially around Asian culture, which I have not been able to spend more time on, but I've always been like very fascinated. Like Korea, when I had lived there many moons ago, um, Christianity has continued to be on the rise since the Korean War. Um, and I'm very curious how that, in a way, has informed what is happening in Korean society, but also through your own writing, too. I'm very curious to know how that's also connected.
Um, I try not to talk about Christianity as a whole in my writing, but I do see a lot of problem with certain factions of Christianity that is extremely active and very harmful in Korea right now. Um, And I actually had the bad luck of, well, good fortune of going through. I had to walk through, like physically walk into their protest, their demonstration.
Mm,
That was March 1st, the day of that big Korean independence protest. That was 1919, so it was the 106th anniversary of the biggest Korean independence protest in the 20th century. And they were saying that Korea, this um preacher guy, I don't want to call him a minister because he's not a regularly, like normally ordained minister, but he calls himself the minister. So he was just preaching, and he was giving a sermon, a very loud sermon, and he was saying that Korea is weak and communists are trying to attack us, and Korea is a very small country. North Korea is always trying to eat us up. So we have to rely on the United States. We have to rely on Japan. And what he was saying, kind of, I think it was realistic. It applied to it has certain truth. Probably in 1965 or through 1969 or so, but like after the 1970s, that didn't really it didn't really fit. And if I think about the Korea in the 1980s, where I was actually alive, um, and and able to like see things, uh, I mean, what they were saying didn't even apply to Korea in the 1980s. And I had this very weird feeling that I didn't feel threatened. I had this really weird feeling that they were living in a different dimension. Like
mm,
they were literally
mm,
living in a different reality where Korea is still this war-torn country. People are starving and people are under threat of communism, and somebody has to come rescue us. And that somebody is gonna be you know who, and I'm not gonna say his name because I don't like him. And no, it's not gonna happen that way. But these people seem to believe it s- for some weird reason. But the ultimate purpose, the goal of this preacher guy was to make people um, subscribe to his his some kind of group that he made where he accepts like subscription fees instead of donation. So
mm,
donation and tithes are voluntary, but this is a subscription fee. So you have to, if once you subscribe, you have to pay a monthly fee. And he was trying to sell mobile phones, which is also subscription based. You have
mm,
to pay a monthly fee. And he was advertising his credit card. He had a contract with one of the biggest banks in Korea, so he had this church credit card, and a certain percentage of the profit was supposed to go to that church. If you use that credit card.
mm,
So he was trying to like gather subscription for the mobile phone, his whatever information group or SNS group, and this credit card. So it was profit. It was all profit. He was selling his faith to to get to earn money.
mm,
It was it was as dirty as it could be. And that is where extreme alt-right um self self-acclaiming Christian, what they say is Christianity, alt-right Christianity is right now. And they are very proud to call themselves the alt-right. So I'm not being derogatory. They call themselves
mm,
the alt-right or the ultra-right. and they are very proud of it, and they think that is the only way, like that is the only righteous path.
Yeah, I think it's also very interesting to see the connection between the ultra-right evangelism to late-stage capitalism. I think there is such a deep connection within the two. And I'm also like very curious because like now that you bring this up, like Korea in the last 60, 70 years since the Korean War, I mean, you see North Korea and South Korea with two very different ideologies, but there's also, you know, but I think in some ways we see South Korea as the good person in this relationship. It's a very binary. But what do you make of the binary versions that are being fed about North and South Korea in terms of its relationship, but also like in the world that we live in?
um as I see it, as North Korea is not exactly a country, it's a cult. It's a cult. And South Korea is, I guess, a little better because we have the freedom to choose our own cults in this country. Whereas in North Korea, like you have to believe in this one state chosen cult. So yeah, that's the difference.
So, so much has been happening politically and socially in this decade already with the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, what we are witnessing in Gaza, and currently with in the US for the Trump administration. And while for you in Korea, you have seen a lot of political chaos that has happened there. Um, and I know that you have touched on this, earlier, but I'm also very curious, how do all of these events impact your writing and the message that you want to convey to audiences?
It it affects my writing very negatively. Um, it just takes up so much of my time to go on protests and marches, and I like protesting and I like my comrades. I love my comrades. But last December when the crazy guy um announced the martial law, that was too much. Like everything just stopped. Everything stopped, and all all of my people and myself had to take to the streets with the kind of um desperate fear that I had never felt in my life. And that whole situation was resolved ultimately in April. So, so we already lost like one third of the year. So it was a giant waste of time, a giant waste of everybody's time and energy. And I want my 3 months back, and I want to sue the guy. And people are actually suing him,
Hmm.
and they won. Um, the first batch of people started a class lawsuit against the former president, and they actually won. They actually did. So and it depends on the plaintiff, not the perpetrator, but the victim. So if I claim myself as a victim and start a new lawsuit, then I can, apparently. So I'm 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 thinking about it.
I mean, I think that a lot of the American people would love to have some tips about how to reclaim like the last 9 months, and then also like maybe 4 years of the Trump. So yeah, I think we need like 5 years that we need to reclaim back. I think what's interesting for you as a writer, especially in Korea, I'm also like very curious about like as a writer, do you feel like there's always the concern of censorship and the repercussions of speaking out through your writing and through your social media? I'm very curious from like an artist's perspective because artists, you know. like being Cambodian and Vietnamese, like a lot of artists were killed because they were seen as threats to the regime. I'm very curious to see how that has been treated in Korea.
Um, as far as I know, artists don't feel physically threatened. That era is over. I really sincerely hope that era is over. Um, I am no longer young and I quit my job, so nobody can sack me. And people are, especially men who are of the crime committing age, are generally not interested in me because I'm too old. So I have the relative freedom, and I'm also married. To a man. So I conform to patriarchy. So I guess that makes me even less interesting. So all of these elements combined, I think I'm pretty lucky to feel not threatened. And everything else I just ignore. I don't read reader comments or any kind of comment about my protests or my writing or anything because I'm sick and tired of it all and I quit my job, so I'm not afraid of anything.
And going back to like Midnight Timetable, comparing it to your Utopia and Curse Bunny, what did you decide to do differently this time? Like more from a stylistic perspective, and also in the way that you were trying to inform your readers through this particular book.
Your Utopia is entirely science fiction, so that book is very different in and of itself. Midnight Timetable and Curse Bunny are different in that when I was writing Curse Bunny, I was very confused and very angry, but I didn't know why I was angry. And I strongly believe that I was angry because there was something wrong with me. And my proof was that I was confused. I'm Other people don't seem to be confused as I was, and I'm confused, so there must be something wrong with me, but I don't know what is wrong with me, and therefore I was angry. But with Midnight Timetable, I through all those protests, I realized that um maybe there is something wrong with me because everybody's crazy, but I'm not as weird as I thought, and some of my anger and confusion were actually justified or validated by things I learned through protest and pride and um, all the good people that I met and all the angry people I marched with. Midnight Timetable is less confusing, I think, or it, I, as a writer, was less confused when I was writing it, but I was probably angrier because I know what confused me, but none of the problems are solved. And if anything, I'm seeing more problems, and I got angrier. And now I have heard real horror stories from real life people who really have to go through life with disability or with a different orientation or identity than than the majority, or who are cut off from family and are demonized, etc., etc. So I think the, I hope Midnight Timetable is a little high definition in that respect and less confused, but as scary, I hope.
Hmm. You have teamed up with Anton Her again for this book. What conversations have you talked about with him, and what makes his translation special to you?
I didn't have any conversation. Uh, when Anton finished, he complained to me that the tunnel scene was so damn scary. Um, and he told me that when he first read it in Korean, it wasn't really that scary. I mean, it wasn't that it didn't really leave a specific impression, but while he was translating, he really freaked out.
Mm,
So he complained to me, and that was about it. That was part of the message that he had uh, finished the first draft. So that's about it. I completely trust Anton. I don't tell him what to do or what not to do. And with Your Utopia, I made some mistakes with the sources. The citations were
mm,
wrong. So Anton asked me why he couldn't find that specific text from this specific literature, and so I fixed the problem. But with this one, that I didn't have any sources or citations, so I that was not a problem. So he just did it. And he also translated Red Sword. It was published in the UK by Hunt for Star, and I translated his Toward Eternity into Korean. So this is my fourth collaboration, if you count all
oh,
of
wow.
them, with Anton, both ways.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is such a beautiful collaboration. Also because I am biased. I mean, I love Anton. I've known him for years now, and I marvel at his dedication and his commitment um to literature, and especially in the world of translation, and how critical that is, especially during the time of AI. So shout out to Anton on this one. And also, like the last time we spoke, you mentioned how you were virtually almost unknown in Korea when you released Curse Bunny. How have you interacted with Korean readers, and how have they received your work?
Um, I don't know because, as I said, I don't read reader comments, and I avoid like listening to my readers about their opinions. I'm really sorry. But and when I go give lectures I give a lot of lectures at public libraries and schools, and schools a little bit different, but at these library talks, the audience are usually people who like my work, or people who actually approach me and want to talk to me are people who like my work. So I've met a lot of people who told me they like this story or that story. Um, I just try to brainwash myself that everybody loves me. And um, also, a lot of my protest buddies read my books and then they come to my talk. So they told me that they actually tell me that they saw me at Pride, or they saw me at this protest, or they marched with me at that protest. I am very, very proud of them. I am proud of my readers who protest with me. They're my comrades. We're gonna change the world.
Oh, that is awesome. And I think what I also have been thinking about, especially in this age of protest, while there are, plenty of writers worldwide that are speaking out on the current social injustices and genocide in Gaza, Congo, and Sudan, there are many that remain very silent due to perhaps pressures from the publisher, losing lucrative speaking deals, and so forth. What do you have to say to those writers who are still either struggling to be vocal or that are choosing to stay on the sidelines?
Um, I think being able to voice one's opinion is a privilege. I can't really speak I mean, I don't know every single writer's situation. Some may um ha some may fear financial consequences, and in certain cases, people may actually fear for their lives or their safety. So I can't really say, I mean, be choosing to stay silent is a political act in and of itself. Nobody can escape being political in this day and age, um, whether by silence or by speaking out or staying in the middle. No matter what you do, you're gonna be whatever you do is gonna be political. Um, because we are living in that kind of world. But people do their best, and only they know their own situation. So I try not to condemn them. Um, yeah, that's all I can say. I do me and they do them.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think it's such an interesting climate right now, especially for writers that there is this growing pressure to speak out because writing is how we document our history and how it will one day be received for future generations. Do you feel a responsibility to that as a writer? Do you feel this need um to be able to go against the grain and and to be able to document even if it really does put your life in jeopardy, whether it's financially or even physically, mentally?
Yeah, yes, of course. I I was a teacher for 12 years. I was a teacher for a lot longer than I've been a full-time writer. So, I still have this sense of responsibility, especially when I think about the people who used to be my students, um, and who used to take my classes. And back then, I thought I didn't want to feel ashamed in front of my students. And now my students graduated, and some of them became teachers themselves. And I like I I meet this one particular former student at every protest, every single protest. I see my student, and um, I know that I have grand students that I've never met because my student is now a teacher.
Oh my
So
gosh.
uh, I I still have this vicarious sense of responsibility for the future generation. I have to make this world a safer place, and I want to make this uh uh world a more respectful space for everybody, so that my students and grand students can be free when they come out to the world and try to live their lives. That is what I think.
While we are surprisingly close to being done with 2025, what what are you currently working on and what are you looking to do for the remainder of this year going into next year?
I'm working on a story about migration. This is supposed to be for young adults. I don't know how to write specifically for young adults, so I just assume that I'm gonna suck and they're gonna hate me. Um, yeah, and I have a lot of translations to do, and a lot of protests to do. That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, like, especially in this day and age, that protesting is a full-time job, and it just seems to be, if it's not one thing, it's another thing. And I'm glad that you don't live in America for that reason alone, because I cannot imagine how exhausting you would be, I mean, not to say that Korea is a walk in the park, but like, yeah, I think it's like, I guess maybe put it this way, what are you observing about the US in terms of their protests versus Korea? I mean, I have my opinions, but I'm very curious to know what have you observed from an outsider perspective of the US and how they are responding to fascism.
Um, People are, I mean, Americans are being creative. Like, they're surprisingly creative. And once a friend of mine, an American friend, who I met in grad school and love dearly, told me that she wants to go to these protests with her son, but she is afraid that somebody might come to the protest with a gun. And she lives in Texas. So yeah, that was a revelation. The gun control is very strict in Korea. I never had that kind of worry in Korea ever at any protest in Korea. But I mean, the U.S. situation is very different, and it depends on the region and the state, and the city. So, you have to be alive to have an opinion. So, yeah, yeah, it just breaks my heart.
Um, I know that it's been such a very difficult conversation that we're having today. But one last question that I have in mind is, what gives you joy? How do you take care of yourself as a writer and also just trying to survive in this society? What are things that you have done to give yourself a level of self-care and self-preservation?
I sleep a lot. I sleep a lot, and I drink a lot of orange juice. Orange juice. I love orange juice, and eat a lot of pasta. And that's pretty much what I do. I clean and I do the dishes when I can't write. And today, I just came back from a protest. It was not a protest, it was a celebration. One of the workers who was fired by so there was this Japanese company and their factory caught fire, and then they dismissed everybody after the the factory burned down, and then they got the insurance money to, uh, I mean, big enough insurance money to rebuild the entire factory, but they dismissed all the workers and they refused to rehire anybody, even though they have another factory at a different city. So, seven workers have been protesting to get their jobs back and also protesting the special treatment of foreign companies by the Korean government. It's like the foreign companies can legally do this to Korean workers, while Korean companies are not allowed to do the same thing. Or, well, they do the same thing, but it sucks when a foreign company does it because they can just pack up and go back home, and you're left jobless, penniless, and nobody's going to take care of you. So, and one of those workers went up to the roof of the burnt down factory, because the mother company in Japan wanted to bulldoze dismantle the entire factory and sell it to somebody else. So she and two women went up the roof, and that was January 8th, 2024. And one of them had to come down because she got really sick, and the other one stayed on the roof for 600 days. She lived on the roof for 1 year and 8 months, um, to tell the world that the dismissal was unfair, and these foreign companies, including the Japanese company, are having special treatment from the Korean government, and that is unfair. And she um, finally had a conversation with the Secretary of Labor today, and the chief, one of the staff from the president's office came to talk to her, and a lot of members of the National Assembly, and she came down. She left through a roof and she came down to Earth, to us after 600 days. And I was so worried that she might just pass out because of the heat on the roof. Um, I was really, really worried, and I was getting more and more worried because the heat is just not going away. It's the end of August, so it should be like the beginning of autumn, but that didn't happen. It's still really hot, like it's 100 degrees hot in Korea, and it's about 130 degrees on the rooftop. And she's been living there for a year and 8 months. So I was really worried, but she came down today. She's now in the hospital, getting checked up and being taken care of. And that was a great victory for all of us because she finally talked to the Ministry of Labor, the President's Office, National Assembly, and um, they all promised to make changes. And we have to wait and see if that's really going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we're going to protest the hell out of them. But for now, for today, it's a good day.
I just want to say, like, I'm very excited about how people are going to receive Midnight Timetable, and I hope that for my audience that you can pick up a copy from your local bookstore, online, or at your library, or at least talk to your library to make sure that they have a copy. I was wondering if there's any last things that you would like to say about Midnight Timetable, anything that we might have missed in the conversation, anything that audiences should really think about.
You and Me books are trying to get more pre-orders. So they they asked me to make a little video promoting Midnight Timetable and You and Me books. And I love You and Me books. I love You and Me books.
Me too.
Yeah, please pre-order at You and Me books. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Bora, it's been great, talking with you. And, this has been such a great conversation. I love your humor. I love the irony that you have in your stories. So I really hope that if you haven't read Midnight Timetable, I hope that you get a chance to read Curse Bunny and Your Utopia as well. So yeah, thank you so much for, being on my show, Bora.
Thank you for having me.